In the last lecture, we implemented a program using the multiple if control selection statement. Now, in this lecture, we are going to proceed with by looking at another control structure called the while loop. So basically, a while loop is will perform an iteration based on the condition given. So a condition is going to be specified. So while the condition remains true, then some statements are going to be executed for a number of times till the condition becomes false. So basically a statement will be executed under the while loop body until the condition that has been specified in the while loop becomes false. Alright, and to see that practically, we are going to implement a very simple program that will calculate the average of student score based on the scores entered using a while loop. So I have an algorithm here, and the aim of the algorithm is basically to create a program to calculate the average of student score based on scores entered using a while loop. So our program will accept some scores and then sum up the scores, calculate the average, and then so basically we have these steps here. So we are going to input student scores based on the number of the students, and then we are going to proceed to calculate the average, then print out the scores, number of students, and the average. Now these are some 3 steps, but we know that we are going to break these steps further to achieve our objective. And to do so also, I've created a file, and I've called the file while.c. We have added a multi-line comment, we have imported the standard input output header file, which is, we have already known the function of the standard input output header file, and I have already declared function main. Alright, so there seems to be an error here. The return type, I have inputted it twice, so let me just do away with this. So we have int main void. Alright, so now let's see how we can be able to achieve this particular program. Alright, so now the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to declare our variables. So I'm going to put a comment. I'm going to say declare variables. So we are going to declare variables. Alright, so we know that this is a program that will accept scores. So our variable will definitely be score. So we are going to have, among our variables, we are going to have a score. So I'm going to the score can be an integer, and it can be a floating point number. So to be safer, let us declare it as a floating point number. So let me say float score. All right, so we know that our program will accept score, and then we are going to ask for the student number. How many are the students? So to do that, I'm also going to declare another variable. I'm going to call it student number, or number of student, anyone. So let me call it student number, or number of student. Okay, so I'm going to declare it as integer, because we can't have 2.5 students. We can't have 2.5 students, so we can have 2 students, 3 students. So let me declare it as integer, because we are going to have a whole number. So int student number. So number of students, number of students. So I have this number of students. All right, so the format, the way I have written this variable name is what you call camel casing. So because our variable name consists of more than one word, then each subsequent word, the initial of each word begins with a capital letter. So we have with a uppercase. So we have O beginning with uppercase, and then S beginning with uppercase. All right, so we have int students, number of students. All right, so we have number of students, and then now we are going to sum up the scores, because we know that to calculate average, we have to sum up the scores and then divide by the number of the student. So let's have another variable. Let's call it total score. And then since we have declared score as float, this total score will also be float. So let us declare it as float, and then we have total score. So let me call it total score. Right, total score. Okay, so and then to keep track of the number of scores entered, so that we don't exceed the number of students, our program will keep asking for the score based on the number of the student entered. So to keep track of the number of scores entered, let's have a counter. So I'm going to call it student counter. So, or course counter, anyone, but let's call it student counter, since each student has will represent a school, a single school. So let me call it student counter. Okay, and that will also be going to be an integer. So let me call it int, and then let me call it student counter. All right, so we have declared our variables. Also, we have average. Now, the average that we are going to calculate eventually, let us declare it as float, because we can have average as 12.5, 16.6, a floating point number. So basically a floating point number. So let me declare it as float. So let me call it float, and then I'm going to call it average. Okay, so now we have declared our variables. We might require more variables, but as we program, we are going to know about that. All right, so now let us now we have declared the variables. So now let's get the value for the variables by prompting for an input from the terminal. So I'm going to now prompt for an input, prompt for score, prompt for an input. I'm going to ask the user to enter the score. So I'm going to ask print format. All right, so we're going to use print format, and then we are going to ask enter the score. Enter the score. Okay, so the user will enter the score, and then after the user has entered the score, now we are going to accept the score. So get the score. Get the score. So by making use of scanf, scan format, and then we are going to get the score, and we have declared score as a floating point number. So we are going to use a float format specifier to get the score. So this is a float format specifier, percentage symbol, and then F to represent a format specifier for floating point number. And then we are going to get the score. All right, so now we have gotten the score. Now we have gotten the first score. Now we are going to make use of our to go with our algorithm, so we can see that we have achieved the scores is going to be eventually entered. So we have achieved some part of step number 1, that is basically to input the student score. But we are going to get, since it is not a single score, we are going to continuously ask for the score till we exhaust the number of the student. So for that, we also need the number of students, because we don't know the number of the students. So enter the score. All right, so we're not going to prompt. I think we are not going to prompt for the score here at this point yet. We end up to get the number of the student first. So let me change this to enter the number of the student first. Enter the number. Enter the number of students. So let's get the number of the student first. Once we get the number of the students, then also here number of students. So I'm going to change this to number of students. Number of students. So we have gotten the number of the students. So we know the number of the students. Okay, so we are going to enter the score under the while loop body, because we are so now we are going to create a condition, and that will guide the program to the how many number of students the program is going to accept from the terminal. All right, so now we are going to make use of our while. Then this is the syntax of while, then we have condition, then statement to execute if the condition becomes true. So this is the syntax. Basically, we have the while, which is our control structure while. So while this condition that is inputted within this parenthesis, as long as it evaluates true, then the statement under the while body is going to get executed. So what is that condition going to be for this our program? So while the total the student counter, so we are going to have while student counter is less than number of students, then we want the statement under the while to get executed. So student counter is going to count the number of the scores, the number of the student entered based on the score entered. We know that each student will have a score, So each score that is entered represents a student. So after every score, we are going to increment the student counter by 1, because we know that each score represents a student. Okay, so we are going to now prompt for an input for the user to enter the score. So prompt for an input. So okay, let me change this to get the number of students. Get the number of students. Number of students. Okay, so here print format, and then we are going to prompt for an input. Enter the school. Enter the school. Enter a school, or let me say enter a school. Enter a school, and then now the user will enter a school. Okay, so from postcode, like we can add a comment. Prompt postcode. Prompt for the school. So now the user is going to enter a school. Then now we are going to get the school. Get the school. So using scanf, we are going to get the school. So let's have the school. We have declared the school as floating point number. So we have format specifier for float, and then we are going to have the school. School. All right. So now we have prompted for the school, and at this point we have gotten the school, the first school. So now we are going to increment our student counter since it's a all right. And also here we need to initialize the student counter by 0 so that we can be able to increment it in the while loop body. So 0. So we initialize it with 0. At this point it is 0. Since student counter is 0, and then also total score. We'll keep track of the total score. We need to initialize it with the value 0. All right. So at this point, before we enter the loop, it is 0, and then when we enter the loop, we are going to increment it by 1. All right. So now I'm going to come inside the while loop body, and then we are going to increment the student counter since each score entered represent a student. So I'm going to say student counter plus equals to 1. Okay, so now this is what we call a compound assignment operation, which is just basically a shorthand way of writing it this way. If we perform the assignment operation this way by saying student counter equals to assignment operation, is assigned to student counter incremented by 1. So basically, each time we are incrementing the student counter by 1. So by saying student counter, then assignment operation, assignment operator is student counter plus 1. So student counter is student counter plus 1. So we are incrementing the student counter each time by 1. So this is just the line 37. It's just a shorthand way of writing it a line number 38. So basically, the line 37 and line 38 is the same thing. All right. So I'll stick to using the shorthand format, but if you like, you can make use of the line. You can express it the way it is, line number 38. So I'm going to delete this. Okay, so we have incremented the student counter because each score that is entered represents a student, and we have entered the score in line number 33. Okay, so now we have student counter. Now next we are going to increment the the total score. Now we are going to increment also the total score counter, which is a counter that will keep track of the scores entered. So we say total score. So we are going to increment the total score by the score entered. So we are going to see total score. Total score. Also, we are going to say, let me make it so compound assignment operation is equals to score. So we are going to sum up the scores and add them to this counter total score. So each time we accept a score from the user, we are going to collect the score and then add it to this variable total score to sum up the scores, to keep track of the summation of the scores, so that we can be able to use it to calculate the average at the end. Okay, so now so far these are the statements we need to have executed in the while control structure. So let me also make use of this. It's also good so that if you have if your program get lengthy, then you might be confusing. The braces might get a bit confusing. You don't know which the brace, the closing brace is for which to which pair of brace it corresponds to. So it's better to add a comment at the end of each brace to specify what it is for. So this is I'm going to write end while to specify that it is for end while, and then also for the end main that we have. Remember, when we clear from the function main, we have a brace. Okay, so I think I have deleted it. So let me add it, and then I'm going to see end of main, end of main. Okay, all right. So let us go back now. So now we have successfully this statement under the while loop will get executed till this condition becomes false. So student counter will keep incrementing because we have already specified the number of students. If the student number of students is 3, the student counter will keep incrementing until we have entered the until we have entered a score for 3 students. Then that is when this condition will become false, and then the program execution will jump to the line after the end while, which is line number 43. The statement that we are going to write now is statement in line number 43. Now that is where we are going to print. We can see the number of students because let's go back to our algorithm. We are going to calculate the average, and then we are going to print out the scores, so number of students and the average. Okay, so now let's go stick to our algorithm. Let's calculate the average. So now before we print out anything, let's calculate the average. So we can see the average is, now the average is going to be the total score divided by the student counter. Or we can make use of the student counter, and we can make use of the number of students, anyone, since each one represents the number of the students. So let me make use of the number of the students. So number of the students that we entered initially. So those number of students and student counter each keep track of the number of students. All right, so now number of students. So now we can be able to go back to our algorithm and then implement the last step. We are going to print out the scores, the number of the student, and the average. Okay, print out the total scores. Okay, so I mean the total score. So we are going to print the number of students entered is the number of students entered is, and then we are going to specify the number of the students. Okay, the number of students. Okay, so the number of students that is represented by the number of the student variable. Now, number of students, we have declared it as number of students, we have declared it as int. So also here, I'm going to make use of decimal integer format specifier. So a percentage sign and then D. Okay, to specify number of the student entered is. Okay, and now next, we are going to print the total number of scores. So the total number of scores, the total number of scores is also the number of scores, and then we are going to, that is represented by total score. Total score. Now total score has been represented as a floating point, has been declared as a float. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to make use of float format specifier. So I'm going to make use of float format specifier. So F. Now we just print out the average. Now the average of the scores. Now I'm going to print. Okay, so I'm using print format. This is C. So print format, format. Okay, now so print format, and then we are going to print the average of the scores is. All right, then the average of the scores is, then we are going to output the average. Okay, so we have also declared the average as a floating point number. So I'm going to make use of float format specifier F, and then average. So I'm going to have average. So perfect. So we have successfully achieved our program. Now let's go to the terminal and compile it and run it. And then if there is any error, then we come back and fix the error. So I'm going to go to my terminal. I'm going to come to my terminal here, and then I'm going to compile it by entering the command sudo gcc. Then the name of the program is while. The name of the file where I wrote the program is while.c, while.c, and then I want to output it as while. All right, so then I'm going to hit enter my password. All right, so as expected, we have errors. So we have an error in line number 26. Line number 26, we have an error. Error expected dash before print format. Okay, so let's go to line number 26 and fix the error. So line number 26. We have a statement terminator. We forgot to add a statement terminator. Line number 26. Okay, we have this. Print format scanf student number of students. Okay, so we forgot to add, this is a pointer to the variable. We are not using the variable. We are going to add a pointer to the variable. We have already explained this. It is pointing to where this variable number of students is created. That is where we want to save the input after accepting the input from the terminal. All right, so I forgot to add this address operator. All right, so now I'm going to go back again. Is there any error again? And then we have line number 46 as well, line number 45, 46, line number 45, and line number 46. So line number 45. Okay, we forgot to add statement terminator. This is C. Print format, the average of this course is. Okay, something is missing. I deleted something. I'm gonna undo. All right, yeah, I deleted something. So add a statement terminator, and then now let's go back and recompile this program, and then see if there's any further errors. Then we fix the error, because debugging is part of programming. Our program is bound to contain errors. So all right, another error again. Number of students. Okay, we have number of students as integer, and then we here we make use of format specifier, float format specifier. So line number 26, line number 26. All right, number of students. I declare number of students as a decimal integer, not floating point. So I have to remove this and then put decimal integer format specifier. So now let me go back again to the terminal and then clear the screen. Now let me recompile the program again, and so perfect, it has successfully compiled. Now we can run our program by entering the command sudo and then we can while.c, while. Okay, so since we compile it as while, not while.c. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter the number of students. So let's start with a small number, say 5. Enter the score 3. Enter the score 4.5, 4.6. Enter the score 5.7. Enter the score 3.6. Enter the score 10. So we have the number of students is 5. The total number of scores is 26.90000. The average of the scores is 5.3800. So let's improve the output. The print here, it's all congested in one line. Then we can add a new line character to push the other prints into a separate line. So I'm going to go over to the Sublime Text Editor and then see how we can improve the output. So after printing the this, we need to add a new line character. Can add a new line character, /n for new line character, /n for new line character, and then /n for new line character. So I'm going to go back again, and then let me clear the terminal, and then I'm going to run the program, recompile the program rather, and now I'm going to run the program again and see. Enter the number of students, let's say 3. Enter the score 2.3, 3.2, 4.6. Okay, so we have the number of students entered is 3. The total number of scores is 10.100, and the average of the scores is 3.36. Also, okay, we can still improve the output. I want the floating point number to be in 4 places of decimal. Then I have to go and specify that within the format specifier, within the float format specifier. So I'm going to come here to the Sublime Text Editor. So here I want my floating point to be within 4 places of decimal. So I'm going to add -4. Also here I'm going to put a dot 4. I'm going to save it, then go back to the terminal, compile it again, and then run the program. So I'm going here and then clear the screen. So I'm going to recompile it again. Perfect, it has recompiled without any error. So I'm going to run the program again now and see. Enter the code 3, 4.5, 5.4, 6.9. So we have the total number of students entered is 3. The total number of scores is 16.800, and the average of the scores is 5.600. So we have successfully implemented a while loop. We have seen how while loop works in C programming.